UK's karma. Mango's $7 billion crash and the night 2,211 crates of relics vanished. At exactly 2:17 a.m., when most of the city was asleep and the servers were supposed to be silent, Mango's stock graph blinked, then bled. Red lines cascaded like a digital waterfall. Screens froze. Phones buzzed. And somewhere between panic and disbelief, a single phrase began trending across platforms. The U-case has entered its karma phase. By sunrise, the number was impossible to ignore. $7 billion.
Gone.
No earthquake. No war. No policy announcement. Just a chain reaction, triggered, many believe, by the same shadow that had haunted the industry for months, the U-case. But that was only the beginning. Because while analysts scrambled to explain the financial collapse, a second story broke quietly, almost deliberately buried. A story involving 2,211 crates, sealed manifests, and cultural relics that were supposed to be untouchable. They were gone. And the timing was perfect. The collapse that no one predicted, but everyone feared. Officially, Mango's $7 billion valuation drop was attributed to market correction, investor anxiety, and external sentiment. Unofficially, industry insiders whispered one word: karma. For weeks, Mango had remained silent while the U-case continued to spiral across social media. Silence that many interpreted not as neutrality, but as calculation. Every brand chooses a moment to speak. Mango chose not to, until the market chose for them. At 9:30 a.m., when trading opened, Mango shares plunged so fast that circuit breakers were triggered within minutes. Analysts stared at charts that made no sense. "This isn't organic," one financial commentator muttered on a live stream. "This is reputational gravity catching up." Screenshots circulated showing institutional investors pulling out simultaneously, as if following an invisible signal. And then someone posted a single line that went viral within an hour. "You ignored the U-case. The market didn't." U-case karma. When silence becomes a liability. The U-case had already become more than a scandal. It was a cultural referendum. Not about guilt. Not about innocence. But about power. Online narratives painted it as a story of protection, suppression, and selective outrage. Whether accurate or exaggerated, the emotional weight was undeniable. And Mango, critics claimed, had benefited from that silence. Sponsors stayed. Projects moved forward. Executives smiled on earnings calls. Until suddenly they didn't. A leaked internal memo, never officially verified but widely shared, hinted at brand toxicity risk exceeding acceptable thresholds. Too late. The internet does not forget. And the market does not forgive. By midday, Mango's name was no longer trending under finance. It was trending under consequences. Then came the crates. At 3:46 p.m., while financial media remained obsessed with stock charts, a single post appeared on a niche cultural preservation forum. It was short, clinical, terrifying. Inventory discrepancy confirmed. 2,211 crates missing. No emojis. No hashtags. Just numbers. Within hours, independent bloggers connected the dots. These weren't ordinary crates. They were registered cultural relic shipments, allegedly transferred under special clearance weeks earlier. Ancient artifacts. Ceremonial objects. Items that were supposed to be tracked to the gram.
And now, gone.
No alarms reported. No forced entry. No surveillance footage released. As if the crates had simply decided to leave. A vanishing act too clean to be random. According to circulating reports, the crates were last logged during a temporary relocation, approved under emergency administrative orders. Paperwork flawless. Signatures valid. Digital trails immaculate. Too immaculate. A former logistics consultant, speaking anonymously, summed it up bluntly. This wasn't theft. This was erasure. The number, 2,211, became symbolic overnight. Users began asking, why that many? Why now? And why during Mango's collapse? Memes turned dark. Theories turned sharp. Some suggested the crates were collateral. Others claimed they were leverage. A few went further, calling it the true currency behind the UK's power struggle. No evidence confirmed any version, but the silence was louder than denial. The night the servers went dark, tech workers reported unexplained maintenance blackouts across interconnected systems the same night the crates disappeared. Coincidence?
Possibly.
But in the UK's era, coincidences were viewed as luxuries no longer affordable. One anonymous post from an alleged night shift engineer read, "I watched 3 systems shut down in sequence. Not crash. Shut down. Like someone saying goodnight." By morning, logs were overwritten, backups delayed, audit requests under review. And Mango? Still silent. $7 billion is a number. Trust is the real loss. Financial experts tried to calm the narrative. Markets fluctuate, they said. Sentiment stabilizes. But this wasn't just about money. This was about moral accounting. The UK's had turned public attention into a microscope, and Mango, once untouchable, was now a specimen. Comment sections filled with variations of the same sentence. You can survive a scandal. You can't survive indifference. Advertisers paused. Partners hesitated. Executives canceled appearances. The crash wasn't just numerical. It was psychological. Relics, reputation, and the cost of control. Cultural scholars weighed in next. If the missing crates were confirmed as relics, the implications would be global. Diplomatic inquiries. Legal consequences. Historical loss. But weeks passed. No official list released. No recovery announced. No arrests made. Just quiet reshuffling. And that silence mirrored the early days of a EU case, when questions were met with procedural language and responsibility was diluted across departments. The public noticed. They always do. When karma doesn't announce itself, it arrives. The phrase UK's karma stopped being poetic and started feeling procedural. Not mystical. Not emotional. Transactional. Ignore the cost of silence long enough, and eventually the invoice arrives, itemized, unavoidable, and very public. $7 billion. 2,211 crates. Different currencies. Same lesson. The aftermath no one can control. As of now, Mango has issued a brief statement acknowledging market volatility and inventory inconsistencies under investigation. No mention of you. No mention of karma. No mention of relics. But the narrative has already escaped. You can manage numbers. You can freeze accounts. You can lock warehouses. What you cannot lock is collective memory, a question that refuses to disappear. Late at night, long after the headlines fade, one question continues to circulate across forums and feeds. If 2,211 crates can vanish without a sound, what else did we never see? The UK's is no longer just a story. It is a mirror. And Mango, once towering and untouchable, is now learning what happens when a mirror cracks. The shadow that returned when the crates went silent. They thought the worst night was over. The stock crash had stabilized. The headlines had cooled. Mango's executives had retreated behind statements written by lawyers, not humans. But in the UK's, nothing ever truly ended.
It only went underground.
At 4:11 a.m., a single screenshot resurfaced. Old, grainy, and previously dismissed as irrelevant. It showed a shipping authorization file, partially redacted, stamped weeks before the UK's exploded online. One word stood out. Special Cultural Transfer, Priority Clearance. And beneath it, a code name that had not been spoken publicly in months.
You.
The name that refused to stay buried. Yumenglong's name had long vanished from official press cycles, but not from internal systems. That was the first unsettling realization. Sources close to the logistics chain claimed the authorization wasn't issued because of you, but during the exact window when his case was allegedly being handled quietly. Timing, once again, was the villain. Online investigators noticed something chilling. The crate's transfer date aligned perfectly with a sudden shift in narrative tone around Yumenglong, when outrage dulled, hashtags slowed, and attention fractured. Not disappeared. Fractured. as if someone had scattered the noise just enough to move something valuable without anyone hearing footsteps. 2,211 crates. Why that number matters. The number wasn't random. Archivists pointed out that 2,211 items matched the catalog size of a restricted cultural collection reportedly moved under temporary protection measures years earlier. Items too sensitive to be displayed, too valuable to be misplaced. These aren't antiques, one anonymous historian wrote. These are bargaining chips. When those chips vanished, so did the illusion that this was merely about finance or reputation. This was about control. And Yu Menglong's case, once framed as a personal downfall, began to look disturbingly like a smokescreen. The night the trail went cold. Security footage from one facility allegedly showed trucks arriving with proper clearance, but no departure footage was ever logged. Not deleted. Never recorded. Digital access logs revealed administrator-level overrides executed during a system-wide maintenance window. The same window later cited by Mango engineers when questioned about missing data. The language was familiar. System anomaly. Data inconsistency. Internal review ongoing. The same phrases used months earlier when questions about Yu Menglong grew uncomfortable. The same silence pattern. Different stakes. Yu Menglong. Scandal or signal? Here is where the story darkens. Several commentators began to ask an unthinkable question, not whether Yu Menglong was guilty or innocent, but why his case drew such precise timing advantages for others. Every major shift benefited someone. Attention diverted. Narratives reset. Decisions fast-tracked. One viral post summed it up brutally. Yu Menglong wasn't the fire. He was the smoke. The implication was never officially addressed. But the market reacted. Mango's $7 billion crash revisited, with new eyes. When investors revisited the crash after the crate revelations, the numbers told a different story. The sell-off began before the crates were publicly reported missing. As if someone already knew. As if the crash wasn't panic, but preemptive retreat. One financial analyst described it chillingly. This wasn't fear. This was evacuation. Brands don't lose $7 billion overnight because of rumor alone. They lose it when trust collapses internally, when stakeholders believe a truth is coming that hasn't surfaced yet. And Yu Menglong's name was still orbiting that truth. The unanswered question no one wants to ask. If Yu's case was used to redirect attention, if Mango's silence was strategic, if 2,211 crates vanished under flawless paperwork, then the question becomes unbearable. Who signed off and why did they think they'd never be caught? The absence of arrests, recoveries, or transparent audits suggests confidence, not panic. Confidence only exists when someone believes the system still protects them. But karma doesn't operate on systems. It operates on timing. Final scene. When the shadow turns around. Late one night, a single comment appeared under a forgotten Yu Menglong post. It gained no likes. No replies. Just quiet agreement. They thought burying his name would bury the trail. But shadows don't disappear in darkness. They wait for light. The Yu case is no longer about one person. It is about what moved while everyone was watching him fall. And somewhere inside sealed warehouses, offshore accounts, or places not meant to be searched, 2,211 answers are still missing. The market has already spoken. The internet is listening. And karma? It hasn't finished counting.